Well, Democratic presidential hopefuls have wrapped up the fifth televised debate ahead of the 2020 election. 10 candidates took to the stage with the push to impeach President Trump dominating the discussion. All said President Trump's behaviour is unacceptable and impeachment is necessary.
This is a pattern with this man, and it goes to everything from how he has betrayed our farmers and our workers to what he has done with foreign affairs.
We can deal with Trump's corruption, but we also have to stand up for the working families of this country. We also have to stand up to the fact that our political system is corrupt, dominated by a handful of billionaires, and that our economy is rigged with three people owning more wealth than the bottom half of America. We can do it all when we rally the American people in the cause of justice.
President Trump is being accused of pressuring the Ukrainian president to investigate Joe Biden and his son's alleged corrupt behaviour. Well, CNN reporter Whitney Wild is in Atlanta and has been watching on with this debate. So, Whitney, how did the debate shape up? I guess any big winners, and at this stage we usually keep an eye on the big losers, someone that might be almost counting themselves out from their performance. Anything there?
Yeah, so it's difficult to say with any certainty in the minutes after the debate who the winners and losers are, because only the polls can really tell us that. But here's who I'll say had a good night. Pete Buttigieg, we were going into this debate thinking that he would get really knocked pretty hard because he's the front runner now in Iowa, ahead by 9 points in that state, according to the last poll. So we were expecting that he would feel a lot of scrutiny, a lot of heat, but it didn't happen to the degree that a lot of us thought it would. He walked away virtually unscathed. I mean, he had a couple criticisms here and there. For example, criticisms about his real struggles getting votes among African Americans, his real lack of experience, and he had answers for both of those. So for the most part, he walked away unscathed. Amy Klobuchar also had a good night. She is one of these candidates who has had solid performances and has been searching for breakout moments. She's been increasingly able to do that. So she brought up a topic that she has brought up before, and it's that she doesn't feel that a woman with the amount of experience that Pete Buttigieg has would be seeing the amount of support that Pete Buttigieg has. So that was one of these moments that people will likely remember her for. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, Cory Booker is on the edge for the December debate. He's one of those 4 candidates who is not yet qualified. He needed to have a good night tonight. It really could have been do or die for him. And he was able to find some pretty solid footing. He took on Elizabeth Warren over her wealth tax, took on Joe Biden over his equivocation over the legalization of marijuana. He was able to get the airtime he needs to remind voters why he's in the race, and that and for those that could support him, that they might or should reconsider doing so. So those are some of the candidates that did well. Joe Biden has continued to struggle. Some of the main problems he's had in the past debates is just speaking smoothly, getting his sentences out concisely and not misspeaking. And he had some stumbles tonight. If there are people who are concerned about his viability as a candidate, they might walk away with some questions tonight, because he continues to have some of the same problems. He isn't correcting these flaws that well. Back to you.
Interesting, yeah. I saw one where he sort of was saying that he was misquoted, but he appeared to have misspoken instead. Mayor Pete, or Pete Buttigieg as he's called, I think maybe Mayor Pete for people like me that struggle with his surname, he's an interesting one, isn't he? Because the primaries are about not just winning over hearts and minds, but convincing people you can win the election for the Democratic Party. And one of the angles that they're taking him on is, are you actually going to win over black voters?
Right. He knows that. I mean, he has said, he welcomes the challenge to connect with voters that he has struggled to connect with before. So he has, as of late, been rolling out new initiatives to try to make that happen. Although his campaign has had some missteps. They had a stock photo of a woman from Kenya on their website. She was surprised by that. That was one of these headlines out here in the U.S. that had people wondering about his campaign's ability to connect with the black vote. If you have a mistake like that, that's pretty bad. The other thing that he's been hit on was his lack of experience, but he had an answer for that as well. He says, look, he knows he has a lack of experience, basically his answer was, I am from these areas that have slipped through the fingers of Democrats, and I know what it's going to take to bring these areas back. Let's not forget, he's in a Rust Belt state. He's in a state that is very much a battleground state, so his opinion is that he knows what it's going to take to win back these voters who have fled the party in 2016. Back to you.
All right, well, we'll see if he can keep up the momentum. Just finally and briefly, we had quite an interesting turn into foreign policy. Whitney, candidates promising to dramatically change the country's relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Right, that came up quite a bit, and further, the killing of a Washington Post journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, came up, and several candidates took that opportunity to redirect, not at one another, but really redirect at President Trump for a lack of what they're calling a lack of defense and a lack of any real repercussions for that. Several candidates saying that was completely unacceptable. Joe Biden saying that there should be perhaps harsher penalties for these officials who are in not just in Saudi Arabia, but in Syria as well, who are committing these atrocities with seemingly no repercussion. Back to you.
Whitney Wild, early on in the process, thank you for the very latest there on that Democratic primary debate process.